Bonjour ma petite chou-fleur et bienvenue à la cuisine chaotique. En l'honneur de mon voyage à Paris la semaine prochaine, je vais préparer une plate française. Nous faisons une pot-au-feu. Et maintenant, je vais me remettre à l'anglais. Pot-au-feu is kind of meat and vegetables in a light broth. So it's just a really delicious, fresh and vibrant dish. When I worked at a French restaurant, we used to have this made with ham hock, and that's what's kind of triggered this idea. So the meat part, I'm gonna make a wash the flour seitan. Now I've been wanting to do kind of a bacon, gammon sort of flavoured one for a while. And then, yeah, the memory of the pot-au-feu popped into my mind from 20 plus years ago. I thought, oh, that might be a really nice one. I've made the dough already. I just wanted to cut down the video time, but I will put links in the description to the steaks video that I did that will show you right the way through how to make the dough. And I'll also put a wash the flour playlist in the description just so you can dive in and have a proper look. Normally I do 2 or 3 washes, but I want to try just doing one main wash, partly because my hands are really bad today and also just to see what the texture's like, because leaving the starches in there gives it a slightly softer, maybe fattier kind of texture. So I thought it'd be interesting to try that out. So there's the dough. So it's got like a texture similar to chewing gum, very stretchy, very pliable. So now it's time to get some flavours in there. I'm flavouring mine up to be more like British bacon, which I think is a bit similar to Canadian bacon, but it's much less sweet than the stuff I used to have in America. There's no maple syrup, nothing like that. So it's got that kind of tangy, meaty, salty sort of flavour. I'll run through the ingredients very quickly for you. So I'm going to use chicken flavour stock as my base, because that then does a lot of the work for me. A bit of sea salt, and then I'm going to use a bit of celery salt as well. I just noticed that's got a mildly kind of meaty sort of flavour. Then I've got garlic granules and onion, just for a bit of background savoury umaminess. Some dried beetroot powder for flavour and also for colour mostly. Bit of dried lemon, that's for sharpness, to get, you know, just to balance the flavour out a bit. Touch of white pepper, just for a little bit of seasoning. And then some smoked paprika, that's to get that kind of smoked bacon sort of flavour in there. Then I went to the Chinese supermarket a while back and found this stuff. And it's yukari, which is seasoned perilla leaves. I googled it while I was in the shop and it said that the leaves taste vaguely meaty, so I thought I'd give that a go. Brought it home, tried it, and it has got salt and sugar in there. But not massive amount of sugar, just a tiny bit. So I think in combination with everything else, it should be okay. And then one of the main crucial ingredients that we're gonna use is sumac. So sumac is a little berry that's then dried and ground. And for me, this has got a very tangy, mildly irony, sort of lemony brightness that I remember meat having. So I've used this before, and it really does help kind of replicate that flavour. If you're in the UK, for me it tastes a bit like Frazzles, like the kind of little bacon flavoured snacks, and I wonder if they use that in there. And then we're going to use a little bit of nutritional yeast. I just find that with the sumac and the paprika, it's just bacon. I'm going to make up a big pot of the flavouring because I want to try another version of the dried and rehydrated tofu that I did. I want to try and make that gammon flavoured. So I thought might as well just mix up all of it now in one go and then just keep the rest in the cupboard. Now the sumac and the perilla leaves are a little bit bigger, so I'm going to blitz it in the coffee grinder just to get it very fine. I think what I'll do is mix up a pot of the seasoning, and then when I'm ready I can add the chicken flavour stock, just for space saving really. This is very much guesswork at the moment, so I'm just going to have to chuck things in and then start adjusting it. So here's the sumac, so it's this lovely kind of dark red, sort of brown maroon kind of colour. And you can see it's a little bit bitty, so I just want to try and get that a bit finer. So tuck 3 in, lid on, and then blast that. So that's gone a bit finer. Tip that into my bowl. That's the perilla leaves. So you can see it's quite a deep purple, but then it's kind of dotted with a slightly more vibrant, brighter purple. Really pretty. That in, I think I'll do one of those. And same again, just make that a bit smaller. So that's already a good sign, lots of powder. If you really want, you can make sure you've got everything down to a fine powder, but I'm happy with that. I dried a lemon in the dehydrator when I did the chicken drumsticks video. Because of the pectin that's in the lemon, it didn't go hard, so it's kind of in little clumps. So I think what I'm going to do is grind it with some salt and hopefully get it just a bit finer. I'll put in a half teaspoon of salt and then about half a teaspoon of that dried lemon. So you can see it's kind of clumped like that. Lid on and blast that. Yeah, so that's kind of worked. Nice. I'm going to do a teaspoon of dried onion, half a teaspoon of garlic granules, quarter teaspoon of ground white pepper, 2 teaspoons of the smoked paprika, and then I can always add more if I need to. Doing a tablespoon of the beetroot powder. I'm going to run that through a sieve just to get rid of all those little lumps. I'll do 3 tablespoons of nutritional yeast. I'm going to do those in the grinder, just briefly, just to break the flakes down so it's not so much hassle doing it in the bowl. They're very soft, so it shouldn't take long at all, really. Yeah, no problem. In fact, I'm going to do half and then I'll test it. And then we'll see. And then a heaped quarter teaspoon of the celery salt. Give that a good stir to combine everything. Press out any lumps that you see. Give this a try, see what it's like. Put the rest of the nooch in. I've added another half teaspoon of onion, but I made this out of some dried onion pieces and it's got a much milder flavour than this, you know, if you buy a jar of onion granules. So, but just do it, you know, kind of how your taste wants it. And I might pop in another quarter teaspoon of garlic. I'll do 1 more tablespoon of nooch. I'm adding a block of silken tofu, like I did for the turkey roulades. Links in the description for you. I just really like the texture of it. When I did that turkey, it went very gloopy because I put the whole block in. So then used mashed potato powder to bulk it out again, which worked really well. I'm going to do that again today, but I'm also going to grind up some white quinoa. I want to try what it's like to see what it does to the texture. Meat has all 9 essential amino acids that the human body needs, but you can also find all 9 in tofu, soy, and quinoa. So that's the other reason for doing it. I'm also going to add in a touch of tequila as well. I just think it gives a kind of meaty, gamey kind of texture. I'm only going to put in like a drop, half a teaspoon, maybe less. The sun is right on my neighbour's window. Apologies if I start squinting at you. So what I'm thinking is a good idea to do is to mix the tofu into the dough, get that really gloopy and fluid, then add the seasonings and then start adding the mashed potato powder and quinoa. I just think rather than trying to force the seasonings into a firmer dough, get it in while it's really liquid. We'll see. So I'm going to blob that in. Blob in the silken tofu. Let's break it down a bit. And then turn it on and see what happens. So that's mostly blended. I've got a couple of bits that managed to escape the blades. I'm going to add the seasoning mix into it as it's running. I think that's a good way of getting it all kind of combined and dispersed. I use the Masal brand of chicken stock powder, but I'm sure any will work. Have a look in your Asian supermarket. They quite often have them there. Just check the ingredients, make sure there's no meat in there. I'm going to say this now in case you can't hear me over the motor, but I'm going to do 2 tablespoons of the chicken flavour stock, and then I'll start with 2 tablespoons of the seasoning, and then I'll try it and see what we're looking like. Oh, and I'm going to pop in a tiny splash of the tequila. I'll do that now so I don't forget. Give that a try. So it's got a very mildly pink kind of colour. Getting there, needs more though. I'm going to do 4 tablespoons of the white quinoa to start with. I don't know if there's any difference between the different colours that you can get, but I just happen to have white. I don't think it's an essential part, but for colour, you know, go for a white one if you're bothered about the visual appearance of it. Lid on and blast that. There it is, all ground up. So again, I'm going to add the other bits in while it's running. So just in case, I'll pour all of the quinoa in along with 1 more tablespoon of stock, 2 more of seasoning, I think, and then we'll see, and maybe add in some potato if necessary. Just crack it open, see what it's looking like. Okay, so it's still very pasty. Another 2 tablespoons of seasoning, and then I think we might be good to go. I'll start with 4 of mashed potato and see how we get on. Let's have a look. Okay, yeah, so it's coming together a bit more. It's not quite as pasty, but I think I'll do another 4 tablespoons of potato. So that's a great sign that it's all in one ball. Yeah, perfect. All right. Exciting. I'm going to do mine in the Instant Pot. If you don't have one, what you could do is the fry, simmer, fry method, which I did for the steaks. So I steamed it, I think, for 45 minutes, then fried it on each side, and then I want to say poached it for about 2 hours in stock. Just flip it halfway through so that it's covered, you know, both sides are covered. Or you could steam it. It'll probably take, I don't know, 4 or 5 hours to steam something the size this is going to be, or do it in smaller portions, that's fine. You can also bake seitan. I've done that with the ribs, and I feel like I did something else. I did meatballs a while back, not on camera, but yeah, so there's a few different options for you, and you know, feel free to ask in the comments if you've got any questions about cooking times, and if I don't know, I'll find out for you. I'm going to try and force a bit more texture in there, so I'm going a bit like I did for the ribs video. I kind of smacked it on the counter just to see if I can realign the gluten strands. Let's have a look. And then keep sort of stretching it, keeping it all in the same direction. And then, yeah, I can feel it's getting a bit more elastic as I work it. Grab another piece and just sort of see if there is any. Yeah, okay, yeah, so it does work a little bit. When you're working it and folding it, try and fold it the same way so that you're not starting to do that. You want to keep everything, you know, like that. Just stretch it a wee bit and then blob that on the foil that I've got set up here next to it. And then just repeat that a few times. If you've got the patience and the time, you can take small bits like that, roll it into thin sausages and then build a chunk up that way. I have done that in the past and it is effective, but it is very time consuming and I definitely don't have the energy for that today. So I've laid all the strips out in one direction. Now I'm going to bring the two edges up together. If you do it that way, the dough can sometimes escape and then you get the foil trapped in the middle. So I'm going to do it this way. And then fold it there, and then squinch the ends, and then roll that up in another piece of foil. So that everything's lovely and secure. And then we'll put this in the Instant Pot. Got a little bit of water in the bottom, and I've put a little steaming rack on there. Tuck the package in, so it's all tucked in there nicely. And that's 3 hours on high pressure for more. That'll be in for 3 hours, and then I think I'm just going to leave it in there overnight, and then it'll firm up really nicely. And then we'll pick it back up tomorrow where we'll have a taste, and then I'll show you how to make the pot au feu. The following evening, so trying to get on with the pot au feu. We'll have a look at the seitan in a second, but I'm going to take you to the pot. Got a big pan of veg here, so I've got about 15 new potatoes. Nothing needs to be exact. 3 massive carrots. I think I did like half a swede, half a bunch of celery. Then there was, I think, about 9 or 10 banana shallots. So that's the kind of long shallots. Chopped everything down. I'm going to start that warming over a high heat. Drizzle some olive oil. And I'll give that a stir. I'll get that all sizzling and warm, and then I'm going to throw in some vermouth. If I seem a little off today, I've just really injured my shoulder. Yeah, pretty badly. And the worst bit is I was only doing it squeezing a towel out. I had a damp towel over some phyllo pastry, just twisted it, and yeah. I assume it's just the Ehlers-Danlos nonsense that I usually have to deal with, but this, yeah, it feels a bit different. And then went for a pee, pulled my pants up and forgot, and that made it even worse. Yeah. Oh, chronic illness. I've got 5 cloves of garlic. I'm going to make what's known as a bouquet garni. It's a little pouch that I'm going to fill with some lovely herbs. So I've got a square of muslin. I've got a few fresh bay leaves there. There's 4 little ones. If you're using dried, you might want to use a bit less. A little sprig of fresh thyme. Could do with more really, but that's all I had. Got some fresh rosemary. All of these herbs have just got a really lovely, fresh, vibrant, really savoury kind of smell to them. You can just chuck the herbs straight in the pot, but you end up with loads of bits there. So I'm just going to take the little thing out like a tea bag. Got some kitchen string, and then just gather everything up into a little pouch. So I've tied it up in a little pouch. Slide it in there. And then I'm going to throw in some vermouth. to give it a nice white wine kind of kick. Stir that together. Just kind of burying the little bouquet in there. And then I'm going to use some of the chicken stock and boiling water just to bulk it out. Just throw the stock in, top it up with boiling water. Yes, that's about what we want. A little bit of salt and pepper, and then lid on. Gonna add a pinch of MSG, which is basically crystallized delicious. Put the lid on, and that wants about half an hour or so. And then I'm gonna put in some Savoy cabbage that I had in the freezer, left over from the turkey roulades, link in the description. And I'm gonna pop in some cannellini beans. Onto the seitan. Here it is. So I had a nibble on it last night. Texture, looking at it like this, yeah, quite bread-like, like a rye bread. Pull a piece off. It's very brown rather than the pink I'd hoped for, but that's fine. So there is a little piece of it. So yeah, it's kind of a bit squidgier than I'd hoped for, but nonetheless, let's give it a try flavour-wise. Quite tasty. It's dripping down my arm. I'm going to put it down. I'm trying to show you the texture. There's no kind of shredding or anything. The flavour, it's nice and savoury. I think the Paria leaves might have been a mistake. I was thinking about this last night in bed because the flavour was a tiny bit floral in a way. So yeah, I did wonder if that was, yeah, so skip those. It's got that saltiness, which is nice. Tanginess. To compare it with a meat, liver maybe, that kind of texture. That's going to be nice with a kind of soup, or it'd be good in sandwiches as well. The quinoa isn't necessarily detectable as quinoa, but maybe that's contributing to the not tasting like bacon, although it does kind of taste bacony. I've been trying to think through whether it's an idea not to put the seitan in the soup because I'm going to be eating that for a few days. I don't know what's going to happen to it if it's wet to that level of wetness for a long time. I don't know if it's going to just go mushy. So I think what I'll do is keep it like that, slice off what I want and then cut that into chunks and then put that in the soup when I reheat it. Yeah, because I just don't want to have done all that work for it then to be mush, because that'll be really annoying. And I could even maybe pan fry the chunks with some garlic and rosemary before putting them on the top. While that's simmering away, I'll shred down the cabbage, drain the beans, and we'll pick it back up. It's been about 16 minutes and I think it's done. So that was quicker than I thought it would be, which is great. You'll know it's ready when you can stick your knife in fairly easily. There's no real resistance, because you don't want them to go too soft either, and then they go a bit mushy. Yeah, I think that's good. And the carrots, yeah. So there's a firmness, but there's no resistance really. Got the Savoy cabbage that was in the freezer, pop that in. And that's a tin of cannellini beans. I've drained them, gave them a very quick rinse. Stir that through and then let it come back up to temperature because the cabbage is frozen. There it is, all ready to go. Yum. Got a very delicious bowl of food there. So I'm gonna dive in. That's perfect winter food. Flavors are really like a hug. That's nice. I can imagine being tucked up in bed with a cold, eating this and just feeling a bit better. The flavors in the soup itself, in the stew, whatever we're calling it, they're quite mild and fresh. But then when you combine it with the seitan, that's quite salty, umami, lots of flavors in there, it just works really nicely. Yeah, there's some good textures in there, some crunch from a bit of cabbage. The carrots have got a slight crunch to them. You can easily change up the flavors in there. So you could use maybe port and beef flavored stock, so if you were to go even heartier, or you could start playing around with the herbs, putting some spices in there. Yeah, I'm gonna go and sit down and eat this and sort my shoulder out. But in the meantime, if you want more vegan ideas, hit subscribe, tap the bell icon, have a look at this.